Oh, buddy. Oh, him's baby. Oh, he sniff. Oh, he sniff. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to another of many collection videos. These may seem a little bit repetitive on my channel currently, but it's sort of like when I started with my vintage Coach bag, sort of putting out my feelers and finding those like-minded individuals who are like, oh God, I love vintage as well, and I love this. And again, creating a space and an atmosphere for us to come together and appreciate these things. And these are things and elements to my style that truly do bring me joy that will come later as I'm doing. I've got, as I keep saying, I've got styling videos and other more fashion related ones. I've been really enjoying a wide variety of fashion and styling content. That's really, I've got a notebook with all of my YouTube ideas and scripting things. I'm suffering a little bit from the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. I've been dealing with a bit of struggle actually getting up out of bed and doing things. I've been kind of just maintaining the stuff that I need to do to maintain my life and not really fulfilling the things that I want to do that are a more creative outlet. I enjoy hearing myself talk, but today we're going to be going over my vintage Doc Martens collection, my absolute favorite end all be all type of shoe. And I do want to preface this collection with a little bit of information because I'm coming from a thrifting secondhand point of view. And I feel like for people who might come to my channel and want to get into thrifting and see this, I like to have some disclaimers and some discussion about how I acquired these things, how realistic it actually is to be able to find these in a thrift environment versus a online secondhand one. As I will say, in this collection, I have one pair of thrifted Doc Martens because thrifting shoes is one of those things that's like if you want to find it in your size, if you're really particular. Collection here, 90% of them are made in England because that's the level of quality and vintage that I'm most familiar with, that I'm most comfortable with buying secondhand. A absolute treasure trove of information is a channel called Anvil. He goes crazy in depth to a wide variety of shoes. He literally cuts them open all right through the middle, peels them out, and is like, let's look at this on like a 3D sort of way. He has done a video about new Doc Martens, the ones you get today at like Journeys, as well as going over the made in England ones, as well as just straight up vintage from like the 90s, early 2000s, which is the majority of where mine come from. And there might be one more, but he does a fantastic breakdown of the quality level, the leather, the insoles, and just does a great job deconstructing every single element of the shoe. And jumping off of that, the reason that anytime I talk about something that's like a vintage collection, I don't like coming from like the I buy it because it's vintage, just because it's vintage. As I've said repeatedly, I feel like the word vintage is thrown around a lot just willy-nilly as sort of a selling aesthetic tactic. I like my vintage Doc Martens because the Doc Martens of today have become much more of a fashion shoe rather than like a high quality footwear. Although I will say straight up, Doc Martens are not the big reality for people who wear Doc Martens and love Doc Martens. I feel like we have to come to terms with the fact that Doc Martens are not inherently comfortable shoes. You got to get insoles, you got to break them in. There was one gal, she did a video talking about fashion things that she was inspired, influence to buy, and one of them was Doc Martens, and she was like, people are like saying that they're so comfortable you just break them in, and I'm like, lies, lies, bullshit. But I like doing the vintage because, again, it's a level of quality that I've come to expect and to have in all of the ones that I've purchased. I really like the style. There's that aspect. I feel like, you know, you think of Doc Martens and you think of just like the straight up boot, the single whatever lace eyelet going on, and these ones have just so many different elements of stitching and just a wider variety of styles within the boot. But I feel like I've been going on for way too long. If I have any other points that I should remember throughout, we'll do them then. But let's just get right on into showcasing one of my true loves. A handbag and a shoe truly brings the outfit together. And we're going to start out with my one thrifted pair right here. I got these in a thrift in North Carolina when I was visiting my brother and his family. The thrifting is pretty dang good in the area of North Carolina where I was. My brother was stationed at Fort Bragg, so it was that area. They're lovely. They're beat up. These could probably do with a nice clean and some conditioning. These are just pretty straightforward, just a nice basic style. The majority of mine are brown because, as y'all know, one of my favorite colors is brown, and it just has the most versatility in my closet. I do like a good beat up Doc Marten. Like my handbags, I like a leather that's going to wear well with care and conditioning, something that's going to live for an extended period of time. Really love these. I paid $45 for them, which for a pair of vintage made in England Docs, especially out in the wild, is a really good price. They're pretty comfortable. All of my pairs have a different scale of comfortability depending on the style and how high the shaft is on my ankle, but these are just a nice, great everyday staple. So from now on, all of the pairs that I have been either from Mercari, Poshmark. I don't think I've got any of them from Depop. This pair right here, I'm not sure. This is not a made in England pair, but it is one from the 90s, early 2000s. Actually, when I bought these, the seller left a little note and was like, I've had these for 20 years. And I was like, that's what I want to hear. Just knowing that this has like lived on the planet for so long, and then I get to help continue it living even longer on the planet. I really love this kind of like sneaker boot vibe. It's got the Doc Marten there. I love the contrast stitching on these. I think that's really cute, really unique. Again, that nice thick gum sole. You've got the classic yellow stitching, which in Rose Anvil's one of his video, I think doing the kind that you can buy at Journeys and stuff like that. They're basically like a fashion shoe that you pay the money to get like the yellow stitching, but not really, again, any sort of high quality footwear. But just love these. They're great. These are honestly super comfortable in Doc Marten terms. Next, I'm going to cover some of my most expensive ones. When it comes to a lot of vintage Doc Martens, the more like this one here is a, like, I call it a double stack, where the platform is just more like a third bigger than this one. Some of them can be like twice as big, but the more funky and alternative they get, typically the more expensive they are, especially if you're dealing with dead stock. I got these from a seller who had a whole bunch of like brand new in box vintage Doc Martens. These ones are made in England. I love the thick soles. One thing he talks about, Rose Anvil talks about in his video, is just the niceness of the thicker, chunkier here rather than just those like straight, thin little zigzags that don't really offer you any kind of support. These are just such a cool, big, chunky sneaker. Almost-esque. These are pretty comfortable. They don't cut me in here. My most problematic area is this bit back on the back of my ankle. This is an example of definitely paying a premium. I don't think I've seen another pair of these in my vast searching, at least not in my size. I am a size 9. And I will say, if you are purchasing these freaking secondhand, if you can have them measure the insole, because I've got size 9s and it is not consistent. It's like, I have some size 9s where I'm like, that's a little big, and some size 9s where I'm like, oh, that feels more like an 8 1/3. But I love these ones. These ones were over $200, which is a freaking lot amount of money for a pair of shoes. But I really, really do love these for everything that they bring to my wardrobe. Then this is probably one of my most worn pairs of Doc Martens. I love that thick sole going on there. The brown, all the monochromatic. We've got the Doc Marten pressed there. This really cool sort of wavy support going on here. It's got the little tabs there. These are also made in England. And I preface that with saying typically the made in England are a better quality. Rose Anvil goes a lot into the history of Doc Martens and the company and how it had been together and then how it went on and off and how they outsourced manufacturing to lesser quality, creating a real downshift in just the overall quality of the shoe. A nice big chunky toe. This is something that my mom would call a nice big old pair of clodhoppers. If y'all came from my previous channel, y'all know that I love me a platform. I love me a big old statement shoe. These ones are pretty comfortable as well. I've worn them with all kinds of pants. I've worn them with dresses. I've worn them with skirts, long skirts, shorter skirts. This is just, again, an end-all, be-all boot. This pair here is my least worn, and it is a great example of the Doc Marten sizing. Just kind of, I would love to go through and be like, is it a historical thing? Is it, what goes into a shoe sizing that makes it vary from style to style and potentially year to year. But these are a bit oversized and they have a really, really firm, hard back here. Like this whole bit could be a shoe in and of itself. And then this bit you could take off. I don't know if you can see that line there is just really tight and really firm. And so they dig back against that part, against my ankle. I want to go and get them, have insoles done, take them to a cobbler and really do something professionally to make them fit well. I don't want to just willy-nilly slap something inside of here and then ruin the shoe for me in the future. I do love these. I look forward to the day when I will actually be able to wear these on a daily basis, but this was definitely a more expensive investment that ended up being a little bit not disappointing, disheartening, because I was like, oh, I can't wear them right out of the box because owie, 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 owie. Then we've got this pair here. Another kind of like that one that the lady said she had for 20 years, except it's just a darker brown. Doesn't have as much of that contrast stitching. This is just, I like a wide variety. Again, that nice square toe sole. These ones are they made in England? No, these are not made in England, but they are oil, fat, acid, petrol, and alkaline resistant. I do really like the nice thick leather that they use. They've got the really thick oiled leather that makes for a nice durable boot. Again, all of these is just a love. So much of the detailing. I like just the regular grommets and then having the hook right here to really cinch those in and really secure them around my ankle. This right here is one of my girlfriend's favorite pairs. She just really liked the way she's like, it looks like a sneaker, but it's a boot. That square toe, again, another, as you've seen with all of these, they kind of have that same sort of form, look, but then having the different details and the different variety other than just like what you would think is a standard Doc Marten boot. These offer a bit more unique element of style, which is another reason why I like buying the older ones. They've got a bit of work and love here. I want to have a whole thing with my dad and discussion about sitting down about really knowing how to oil and condition, keep them in the best condition possible. But I will say when it comes to buying them secondhand, if you know what you're doing and you know you can have a little restorative care, like don't overreach yourself in your ability. But because vintage Doc Martens can tend to be a little bit more on the expensive side, if you can find a pair that's maybe a bit more beat up, a lot can be done for a shoe like this with just a little bit of cleaning and a good level of conditioning. If you don't even feel comfortable doing it yourself, it can be worth it for that lower price point to then take it to a cobbler and say, hey, I need you to do a little bit of refurbishing for me. And it is, again, I really, really like the idea of taking things that even though they are a bit more worn, less pristine, but continuing to give it life because it still has wearability. And personally for me, I do enjoy the look of a well-worn, well-taken care of Doc Marten. This here is probably one of my most comfortable pairs. This is actually one we went on a haunted Halloween trail this year, and I had to go through and I wore each pair I wore them to work to kind of give them the day test and be like, all right, which ones have stood me the best through my entire workday? And these ones were absolutely the best choice. They're just a really nice, thick but still very pliable leather. They're firm but not real hard on the back here, and because they've got such a high shaft, they're really able to keep in and cinch in and feel very secure. These are just, I love them so much. Perfect shade of chocolate brown. They actually need to be cleaned because that was a really, really dusty trail. Again, just all the fun stitching and how you can have a very similar looking boot, but it still be unique because of how it is stitched. These are also made in England. Then we've got another pair of real nice thick soled ones going right here. I was a little worried about these when I got them online because they had a pretty severe, this looks like it could pinch in pretty bad against the back of my foot, but they do not. We've got that. I find that very classic. They're almost kind of like, obviously this may not be the correct comparison, but I was like, they kind of look, got that elongated bit with these, like, you know, the running stripes right here. The running stitching look kind of like bowling shoes to me, at least from this point of view. Again, anytime I can get one of these that's just like a thicker, more platformy sole, you know I am all about that shit. So these are, again, all of these are, anytime I talk about this, I'm like, I just love them. They're amazing. They're perfect. They bring me joy. And I do like having that variety. And these ones were online, a nice big thick sole. I believe these ones were off Poshmark and they were like $50. That is a really, really good price point for a pair of these vintage, especially the made in England ones. So if you can find in your size for $50, that is a fantastic price point for buying these secondhand. Another pair of my most worn ones. This is my first pair of black ones that I got because I wanted to get a pair of black ones because I find that they're very 90s, very Y2K, they go with like the A-line skirts, and these look amazing. They look fantastic with my boot cut black pants that just makes my legs look like I got nice long legs. I like the nice rounded, they're a boot without skewing to neo, word that I can't say on YouTube. Made in England, a less chunky, a little bit of a flatter sole. They're pretty, a little slippy slidey. Don't have a huge amount of grip to them, but they're just pretty straightforward, classic. They have a similar shape to a lot of the brown ones, just in black. They're pretty comfortable and just a really good, straightforward, staple black pair of Doc Martens. But probably my favorite pair of black Doc Martens are these amazing, chunky, crazy loafers. This is an example of a size 9. And when you're doing the whole vintage, if it's a men's size 7, translates into a woman's size 9, give or take a little bit room for error, I find. But they're just absolute 90s Y2K perfection. I love the juxtaposition of a nice flowy feminine skirt or a flowy outfit, and then you throw on a pair of big, chunky, hefty shoes like these, and I am absolutely living my best life. These are a bit big, but this is a pair that I just suck it up and I double sock it because these are just too good, too beautiful, too perfect for me to not suck it up and just wear 2 pairs of socks. They're just, I do find it funny though that some of them, because people are all like, ooh, the yellow stitching, but like this one, no yellow stitching, so I'm not entirely sure the process of deciding which ones actually get to have the stitching and which ones don't. Maybe that's a thesis paper someone has written that I could find and read about, but I just the loafers and the chunky, like, oh, 14-year-old me would have died for a pair of shoes like this. And this is a definite, when I got these and I showed Emma, I was like, what do you think? And she's like, clodhoppers. I'm like, that's exactly what my mom would say. And last but not least, my last pair and my last pair of black ones. These ones I need to take the time and clean and condition and polish. These are just such a wonderful, amazing, again, 90s Y2K dream. They've got the zipper on the side. I love the fact that they're, you know, Doc Martens because Doc Martens. But there's something that I feel like if you just looked at them, you wouldn't be like, oh, those are a pair of Doc Martens. They're just a pair of really, really cool classic boots. I'm pretty sure I had a pair of like boots like this, but like faux leather when I was probably like 12 or 13, maybe 14. And again, when I saw these online, I just, they had me, they relived a little bit, brought to the surface a bit of nostalgia and like, oh, I had something like that when I was younger. I want to relive that. They're a bit tight getting into, a little bit of a struggle, a little bit of a push, but then they fit really well. They're very nice and sturdy. Made in England. I really like the look of the bottom here. I'm not sure why. It just looks, I don't know why. I'm weird. I'm strange, but it looks kind of cool and cute and funky because clearly the bottom of my shoes matters as a style element. They're just really super cute. I might work on doing a video talking about cleaning and conditioning depending on how involved a video like that might be. But for now, I don't mind them being all beaten and weathered and worn in. I know with conditioning and cleaning these, they're just gonna look, it really does. It's like giving a pair of boots a facelift when you clean them and condition them and polish them. So yeah, I just love these, especially with just like long A-line skirts and A-line dresses. And it just adds that little bit of 90s Y2K nostalgia whimsy. Well, that is the end of that. If you made it to this point of the video, give yourself a giant gold fucking star for listening to me for at least a half hour go on about my vintage Doc Martens, an element of me and fashion and style and sort of where I'm coming from when it comes to sustainability and purchasing what I like from the past and wearing them in the present. I truly am just hoping to find like-minded people to be able to share passions about sustainability, purchasing secondhand, enjoying stuff that has already existed on this planet and continuing to give new use and life to it rather than being like, oh, well, I just need to purchase something new. There's plenty on this planet already that we can find and purchase secondhand that we don't need to just continuously be contributing to buying something new, creating more of that supply and demand and just, using up more resources and creating more issues. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I love you. And as always, keep it real. Mwah!